Let's all ask ourselves a really honest question. Are those Buffalo Bills Super Bowl bound? And we're getting into that point of the season where all of these weird, obscure statistics are going to come out and say every football team that's got this stat or that stat has gone to a Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl or lost a Super Bowl or not made the playoffs. And it's going to go over and over again. And the Buffalo Bills are in those sort of conversations now for a couple of reasons. One, they hold one of those stats, which I'll share with you in a second. And then number two, the Buffalo Bills are a really good team. I'm a New England Patriots fan. I'm not thrilled about coming out here almost daily now having to talk about the Bills, but as an NFL content creator, you're always looking for the best story. And you're always the biggest story, I should say. And this stat came out today, this tweet, I should say, I'll share with you, that I found very interesting. John Murphy says that the Bills lead the NFL in total defense and passing defense. 3 of the last 4 teams that ended the season that way went to the Super Bowl. And that's obviously going to lead to like those articles and, well, this video saying things like this stat bids well for the Bills going to the Super Bowl. When you really think about Buffalo, though, and you think about the last few weeks, it's really weird, just the roller coaster they've been on. And I've talked to Mario from #sports about it when he's on my podcast, and we discussed the Buffalo Bills, and he's described them basically as Jekyll and Hyde. So if you go back to the beginning of the season, okay, they lost to Pittsburgh, first game of the year, whatever. Then they look pretty decent. They beat Miami, they go on a streak, and then they lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Bounce back, blow out the New York Jets, but I mean, at this point, who hasn't blown out the New York Jets? Then they get blown out by the Indianapolis Colts. And then they bounce back, beat somebody. Then they lose to the Patriots at home. Now, it was a weird game. The winds were like 80 whatever miles per hour. And I think Mac Jones threw the ball. I don't know. I do know. Mac Jones threw the ball 3 times. Damian Harris busted off a big run, which ultimately cost Buffalo. However, the only touchdown that Buffalo scored that game was when N'Keal Harry fumbled it on a punt return. By fumbled it, I mean he fielded it with his face. And then they go to Tampa Bay. They go down 24-3 heading into halftime. Bring it all the way back out, score Tampa 24-3 in the second half, go to overtime, win the coin toss, lose the game. They beat the Panthers the next week, which, I mean, the Panthers got a lot of problems right now, so I wouldn't necessarily call that the biggest of accomplishments. However, it's still the NFL. And then they go to Gillette Stadium, and despite the score looking closer, I'm going to be real with you, they dominated the New England Patriots. I don't think anybody who watched that game, Patriots fan or Bill fan, ever had this feeling that the Buffalo Bills were going to lose. So that brings us back to, are the Buffalo Bills Super Bowl bound? Because, like, I did a story this week saying who's the most dangerous team in the AFC, and I said, it's the Tennessee Titans. Well, who's the most intimidating team? Well, the Indianapolis Colts. I wrote a blog on deanblondell.com that I discussed that, this wacky season is probably going to end up super predictable, and it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I seem to have picked every team and kind of worked around saying, hey, the Buffalo Bills are going to be the Super Bowl representatives of the AFC this year, because maybe I don't want to put myself out there again, because in the preseason, before even training camp, my pick for the AFC this year was the Bills, and it looked like a good pick, and then it looked like a bad pick. It looked like a really bad pick. Now it's starting to look like a good pick again. They got a couple games left, Atlanta Falcons, and then the New York Jets. 2 teams that really they shouldn't get beat up defensively. And then when they get into the playoffs, who's a real threat to Buffalo? Maybe Kansas City. Now, they beat them this year, but Kansas City is starting to fire a little bit better than they were back in October. Tennessee, if Derrick Henry's back, he could probably run the ball down their throats. Tiebreaker versus the Patriots. Bill Belichick saw you twice. The Colts, will they have an answer for Jonathan Taylor this time? I think they could take Cincinnati. I think they could take Baltimore if they got in there. I think they could take the Raiders if they got in there. The Chargers. Chargers a little bit of a dangerous team. I'm not ready to come out right now and say that the Buffalo Bills are Super Bowl bound. But what I will say is I think that it's reasonable to say that there's a good potential, and nobody should be surprised if that's how things kind of shake out at the end of the season.